According to Gallup, President Trump's job disapproval rating is at 58% today. That gives credence to the topic of a new book, Not Our President, New Directions from the Pushed Out, the Others, and the Clear Majority in Trump's Stolen America. Carl Dix, co-founder of Refuse Fascism, is one of the contributors to the collection of essays in the book. Welcome, Carl. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Your contribution is titled The Truth About Trump's Fascist Program, What It Means for Black People, and What Must Be Done About It. What do you see happening, and what do you think has to be done?
Well, what I see happening, and I lay it out in my essay in the book, is a regime that is moving in a determined way to install fascist rule here in America. And when I use that term, a lot of people say you're going too far, that can't happen in America, and they miss two things. First of all, they're missing the history of this country, because this is a country that was born in genocide against the native inhabitants, enslavement and terror against enslaved African people. Even when slavery was ended, it was slavery by another name, Jim Crow segregation, lynch mob terror. A country that has done all of that can and has done unspeakable horrors against people, and that is going on now. When you look at people being picked up, going to the court, a woman was going to the court to get a order of protection against an abusive spouse. She was picked up by ICE, detained, ripped from her family, and then you multiply this by the thousands for what's going on. And even Trump's compromise that he's offering the Democrats on immigration, it's like a white supremacist hostage note. I will kidnap these DACA kids, and if you want them to get their protections back, give me $25 billion for the wall, cut way down on family reunification, immigration, and other legal forms of immigration. It is all part of Make America White Again and Make America Fascist. And then the other thing that people are missing is that a lot of what Trump is doing could have been taken from Hitler's playbook.
You know, we talked about the Gallup poll ratings before we started our conversation, where he is at 58% disapproval, which means that the majority of Americans don't approve of what this president is doing. Do you have confidence in your fellow citizens?
Well, that's not enough. People can express their disapproval, but they have to go beyond that to act, to drive this regime from office through massive nonviolent protest. And I say that because Hitler in Nazi Germany never had a majority of the Germans behind him. He won an election with like 40-some% of the vote, moved on, and made himself the Führer, the emperor of the land. Trump wins a minority election, doesn't get the majority behind him, but he continues to steamroller ahead. They're putting Christian fascist judges on all levels of the court. We can reach a point where they won't even necessarily have to formally take away all your rights, because they will have stacked a court that won't uphold them. People have to actually look at what's going on, look at what's happening to immigrants, look at what's happening to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender people, see the horrors, and resolve that it's up to them to stop it.
You call for nonviolent protests. Why not call for more political action, for more people to become involved in the political process, for more people to run, for more people to raise money, for more people to organize?
Okay, well, first off, I don't define politics by elections. Politics is about power and actually taking to the streets, demanding change, and refusing to accept less than that change is a part of the political process. Because let's look at civil rights. Civil rights got passed in Congress, but only after African Americans and other people stood up and said, Jim Crow segregation, we refuse to accept that anymore. People have to actually understand what changes things. The changes don't come from the top. I mean, right now the Democrats are saying impeachment is off the table. In other words, we'll go to the next election with this guy, and going with this guy to the next election is what Germans tried in Nazi Germany. And look at what it got them. We cannot repeat that.
I want to change the conversation a little bit and talk about Colin Kaepernick. This is Super Bowl weekend. What impact do you think the protests that he led has had in, first off, public consciousness, and then second, on the NFL as an institution?
Well, in terms of the public consciousness, a wave of taking a knee happened. High school sports teams, cheerleaders, colleges, all across the country. I was at many actions with parents of people who had been abused by the police, and you saw people who were in walkers on crutches who took a knee. Colin spearheaded that, and he is loved by many people for it. He's also hated by a lot of people because that rest of the country that is still with Trump was rallied to hate him. So, but he actually helped to polarize society around a very important issue, that issue being police terror directed especially at black and brown people. Now, as far as how it's impacted the NFL has tried to throw him out of the league and get past his protest. They haven't quite succeeded yet, but that's what they're trying to do, and people actually need to take that up. I mean, people have had demonstrations outside of sports arenas. There's going to be a demonstration outside of the Super Bowl this Sunday by people who are going to get as close as they can and take a knee. And I went to the last NFL owners meeting that was in New York City. I actually got into the hotel where they were having it and confronted Jerry Jones, and I said to him, I had a picture of the things they used to put on enslaved Africans back in the days of slavery, and I was saying, is this what you want NFL players to be wearing today? Because he was saying he was going to fire anybody on his team that took a knee. So the NFL is an institution at the top. They're trying to avoid any impact, and that's why they banned him from the league. And anybody who wants to argue that he's not as good as any of the 60-some quarterbacks in the league, I'll tell them, first of all, they're either a liar or they don't know football, because his touchdown to interception ratio, not as good as Brady's, who had the best, but it's almost as good as Brady's. Tell me that that guy doesn't belong in the league.
Carl Dix, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on.
Up next, President Trump has disparaged African nations, but the president of one country says he loves Trump. You're watching Arise America.